Imagine your wedding night turning into a public spectacle where strangers gather outside your door, waiting, listening, watching, where your most intimate moment becomes a legal requirement, witnessed and validated by others, where the slightest mistake could brand you with shame for life. This wasn't fiction. This was reality for millions across 2,000 years of Roman civilization. Tonight, we're tearing back the curtain on wedding night rituals so shocking, so brutal, that they'll make your blood run cold. What you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about ancient Rome. If you love your country, subscribe now. If you love your mother, leave a comment below. Close your eyes and step back 2 millennia. Rome isn't just conquering the world with swords and shields. It's building an empire on something far more intimate, far more controlling: the bodies of its women. The wedding night in ancient Rome wasn't about love. It wasn't about romance. It was about power, property, and the relentless machinery of patriarchy grinding forward through the centuries. From 753 BCE, when Romulus supposedly founded the city, until the empire's fall in 476 CE, Roman society operated on one brutal principle: women were vessels. Vessels for family honor, vessels for political alliances, vessels for producing legitimate heirs. And the wedding night? That was the moment when a girl, often just 12 to 14 years old, transformed from her father's property into her husband's possession. The Roman paterfamilias, the male head of household, wielded absolute power called patria potestas. This wasn't symbolic authority. This was legal ownership. He could sell his children. He could execute them. He could force them into marriages that served his political ambitions. A daughter had no say in whom she married, when she married, or what happened on her wedding night. She was a chess piece in a game played by men. These weren't random customs. They were codified into law. The 12 Tables, Rome's first written legal code from 450 BCE, established that a woman's virginity belonged first to her father, then to her husband. The laws of marriage under Augustus Caesar in 18 BC actually penalized families who didn't marry off their daughters young enough. The state itself was invested in controlling women's bodies. But here's what will shake you to your core. These practices didn't stay confined to ancient history. They echoed through medieval Europe, colonial America, and whisper still in modern cultures worldwide. The Roman wedding night ritual became a template for female oppression that lasted not decades, not centuries, but 2 full millennia. The wedding ceremony itself was elaborate. Offerings to the gods, the joining of hands, the sacred fire. But all of it was pageantry leading to one moment: the consummation. That single act transformed a legal contract into an irreversible bond. Without it, the marriage could be annulled. With it, the girl became a woman, bound forever to a man she often barely knew. Historians estimate that over Rome's 1,000-year dominance, tens of millions of young girls experienced this ritual, each one carrying the weight of family expectations, each one knowing that failure, through frigidity, through pain, through simple human fear, could mean disgrace, divorce, or worse. Are you beginning to understand the magnitude of what we're uncovering? Can you feel the weight of history pressing down? Don't look away now. Subscribe and join us as we go deeper into the darkness. Let me tell you about Cornelia. She was 13 years old when they dressed her in the traditional white tunic, fastened with the knot of Hercules, a knot only her husband could untie. Her hair was arranged in 6 braids, styled with a spear that had killed a gladiator, because even her hairstyle had to invoke violence and conquest. She wore a flame-colored veil called a flammeum, hiding her face, erasing her identity. Cornelia wasn't a real person. She is a composite of thousands of real Roman girls whose stories were never written down, whose voices were never heard. But her experience was universal across the Roman world. The procession through the streets was raucous, deliberately so. Friends and family would shout obscene songs, making crude jokes about what was about to happen. They would chant fertility prayers, calling on the gods to make the girl's womb fruitful. Imagine being that girl, hearing strangers detail what your husband would soon do to your body, while you trembled beneath your veil. When they reached the husband's home, Cornelia would be lifted over the threshold, not carried romantically, but lifted to prevent her from stumbling. Why? Because stumbling was an omen of terrible luck, a sign that the marriage was cursed before it even began. The pressure was suffocating. Inside, more rituals awaited. She would touch fire and water, symbolizing her new domestic duties. She would be presented to the household gods, the Laras and Penates, who would now watch over her as she served this new family. And then, finally, inevitably, she would be led to the wedding chamber, the cubiculum. Her husband, perhaps twice her age, perhaps 3 times, waited there. He had been drinking wine with his friends, celebrating his acquisition. To him, this night proved his manhood, his virility, his rightful dominance. To Cornelia, it was terror wrapped in expectation, pain disguised as duty. But the ritual didn't end when the door closed. Oh no, what happened next was even more disturbing, more invasive, more brutally designed to strip away every shred of privacy and dignity. The wedding night in ancient Rome wasn't a private affair. It was a public performance with devastating consequences. Are you ready to descend further into this historical nightmare? Here's where the story becomes almost unbelievable. You need to understand something crucial about Roman culture. Privacy, as we know it, didn't exist. Roman homes were designed with open courtyards, shared spaces, thin walls. And on the wedding night, this lack of privacy became weaponized. In many Roman weddings, particularly among the upper classes, friends and family members would remain nearby during the consummation. Not in the room, though in some provincial areas, even that happened, but close enough. Waiting, listening. Some scholars have documented cases where guests would bang on pots and pans outside the chamber, creating cacophony supposedly to ward off evil spirits, but really to remind the couple that they were being monitored. Why? What possible reason could justify this invasion? The answer lies in Roman obsession with legitimacy. Everything in Roman society, inheritance, political power, family honor, depended on legitimate heirs, and legitimacy required proof of virginity. The wedding night was the moment of verification. In the morning, the blood-stained bedsheet would sometimes be displayed, not always as public spectacle, but shown to the mothers, to the matrons of the family, as evidence that the bride had been a virgin and the marriage was consummated. This wasn't considered shameful. This was considered necessary. But here's the dark mystery that historians still debate. What happened when there was no blood? Medical science now knows that the hymen doesn't always bleed during first intercourse. Some women are born without a noticeable hymen. Some tear it through childhood activities. Others experience no bleeding even during penetrative sex. But Romans didn't know this. To them, no blood meant no virginity, and no virginity meant catastrophe. Ancient texts hint at the consequences, though they rarely speak directly. Valerius Maximus, a Roman historian, wrote of wives returned to their fathers in disgrace. Juvenal's satires mock women accused of prior sexual experience. The legal writings of Ulpian discuss divorce on grounds of proven non-virginity. The mystery deepens when we examine regional variations. In Rome itself, practices might have been somewhat more restrained among the educated elite. But across the vast empire, from Gaul to Egypt, from Britannia to Syria, local customs merged with Roman law, creating hybrid rituals even more invasive. Archaeological evidence from Pompeii reveals wedding night customs we can barely comprehend. Erotic frescoes in wedding chambers weren't just decoration. They were instructional guides for young brides who had never been taught about sex. Imagine learning about intimate physical acts from paintings on your bedroom wall while your husband, a stranger, prepares to enact them on your body. Some scholars have uncovered evidence of even darker practices. In certain regions, older women, aunts, grandmothers, hired matrons, would enter the chamber after consummation to physically examine the bride, verifying that penetration had occurred. They would check for blood, for physical signs, for proof that could be testified to if the marriage's legitimacy was ever questioned. And here's what will truly disturb you. Roman medical texts reveal that some families, desperate for evidence, would have physicians on standby. If a bride showed no blood, doctors might create false evidence through small cuts, preserving the girl's reputation and the family's honor through deception and additional pain. The psychological toll was immeasurable. Young girls were raised from childhood knowing that their wedding night would be a test of their purity, their endurance, their very worth as human beings. They were taught that their value resided between their legs, in an intact membrane that would be torn apart while others waited just beyond the door. Seneca the Younger wrote cryptically about the tears of brides, acknowledging suffering while reinforcing that it was natural, expected, even necessary. Pliny the Elder documented herbs and potions given to brides before the wedding night, some to ease pain, others to ensure bleeding, still others to prevent pregnancy until a more auspicious time. But the greatest mystery isn't what happened in those chambers. The greatest mystery is how this became normalized. How did entire civilizations convince themselves that this brutality was beautiful, that this violation was virtue, that this trauma was tradition? The answer is chilling. Through repetition and religious justification. The Romans believed their wedding night rituals honored Juno, goddess of marriage. They believed the god Hymen blessed the consummation. They transformed human suffering into divine will. And once something becomes sacred, questioning it becomes heresy. But wait, there's something else lurking beneath these rituals. Something historians whisper about, but rarely explore fully. A suspicion so dark that it challenges everything we think we know about consent, autonomy, and human dignity in the ancient world. What if the wedding night brutality wasn't accidental? What if it was intentional conditioning? Think about it systematically. Rome needed soldiers, millions of them over centuries of constant warfare. Rome needed citizens to populate its expanding empire. Rome needed workers, slaves, administrators. And Rome needed women who would comply, who would submit, who would never question the system that oppressed them. The wedding night ritual served all these purposes simultaneously. By traumatizing young girls at the threshold of womanhood, Roman society created psychological conditioning that lasted a lifetime. A girl who survived her wedding night had learned crucial lessons. Her body wasn't her own. Pain was her duty. Resistance was futile. Male authority was absolute. This wasn't just about one night. This was about creating generations of obedient wives who would raise obedient daughters who would accept their own brutal wedding nights without rebellion. It was systemic, cyclical, self-perpetuating oppression. Look at the evidence through this lens, and everything clicks into place. The public nature of the ritual wasn't about tradition, it was about enforcement. When everyone knows what happens, when mothers prepare daughters for the inevitable, when fathers approve the process, resistance becomes unthinkable. The requirement for virginity wasn't about purity, it was about control. A woman with sexual experience might have knowledge, preference, comparison. A virgin had nothing but fear and the false hope that compliance would bring approval. The validation through blood wasn't about legitimacy, it was about marking. Like branding cattle, the blood-stained sheep branded a woman as used, as owned, as transformed from autonomous being into marital property. Ancient Roman philosophers even admitted as much, though in coded language. Cato the Elder wrote that women must be broken like horses to serve household needs. Columella's agricultural writings compared managing a wife to managing livestock. These weren't metaphors. These were instructions. And here's the most sinister suspicion. It worked. For 2,000 years, it worked. Women internalized their oppression so completely that mothers inflicted upon daughters the same trauma they had endured. The system sustained itself through inherited pain. Even women who gained power, the Empress Livia, the younger Agrippina, used that power within the system's constraints, never challenging the fundamental brutality of the wedding night ritual. They had survived it, therefore they defended it, perpetuating the cycle. But suspicions alone aren't enough. We need to confront the climax of this historical horror. What happened when the rituals failed? When brides resisted? When husbands were impotent? When families clashed over the evidence or lack thereof?